heart breaking, we are taking, this is our time. Just breathe, this won't be a hard fight. The truth, the truth, the truth casts in the night.
All right, everybody. So, having some technical difficulties this evening. We think it's StreamYard. It's not us because everybody's glitching and everybody's doing pretty much the same thing as far as being able to hear each other. So, hopefully, you guys can hear us clear when you watch this podcast and stuff like that. So, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. We've had worse. How you doing, Johnny?
Pretty good. What you don't think you want to just restart the stream?
No, I'd just rather barrel through it. You know,
I mean, I'm getting
because, like I said.
I'm getting every third word. So
Yeah. Now, I can try one more thing. I can take the earbuds out and go back to the microphone and see if that makes a difference. You know.
well, that wouldn't have
Let me
any
see.
that wouldn't have anything to do with the. It's not the sound. It's the stream itself.
Right.
Is your phone?
I shut it off.
I don't know, man. I guess we'll see. See how it goes. But once we get our
Yeah.
guest on, I'll kick myself out for a while and then do like we always do. Anyway, how's life?
Not bad. Not bad. Things are moving forward. Things are looking good. Had a good trip to Ohio. That was a lot of fun. Reinforced the fact that I do not like flying. I do not like it at all. So
Yeah.
all I could do is look out the plane window and go, "Why we so high?"
Uh, so how was the trip in general, y'all? You find anything interesting out there?
I've got some great audio. I'm still going through it, but I got some really good audio. This is kind of funny, but it's me. There's no filter. So I had some great audio the first night. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, really good, just yells, and I was where my tent was, right behind my tent. If you look at the videos, I'm on a ridge. I mean, it's steep. I mean, I wouldn't want to walk down it and try to get back up. Then it goes down into like a little valley where there's a road that goes through it, and then it goes back up to another hill. And I think the vocals I got are coming off that other hill on the other side. But they had placed my tent at a location they said they feel that they're crossing at. So they put me like right in the middle of it. So there's this one moment I'm listening to audio. I think this is night two, and I was sleeping, and I had to be completely honest, I farted. So in my sleep. So what I did, um, there was something behind my tent, between my tent and the tree line, and I can hear it walking around. And then at one point, whatever it was, tapped my microphone. You know, when you tap a microphone, it makes that pop noise. So I
Hmm.
got a pop on the microphone, and then this a little bit later, there was this breathing, just this nonstop, just fast-paced breathing, but more like a deer when they huff, when you surprise a deer and it makes that, and then kind of darts. It was constant. It was like repeatedly, you know. So I'm listening to that. I'm at a point right now where I paused it because something is going on and I want to rewind a little bit and hear it again. So there's some interesting vocals. As far as any physical evidence. There were some interesting tree structures that I found, and hold on to responding here. The
You said you got a. You said you're using a headset instead of microphone.
Yeah, I'm using earbuds tonight.
Yeah. Well, that might be what it is because it's cracking whenever you talk. Maybe that's what I'm hearing.
Maybe I can always once we get the show started, I'll mute myself out and switch microphones. But
Mm.
anyways, I found some interesting tree arches and some structures, but most of them I was able to explain away as far as natural and stuff like that. I did do 3 days worth of uh, videos, day one, day two, day three. And then I did all the night stuff. I just put into one video because I was running thermal and I was running the night vision. Um, and I put it all in one video because the thermal, my thermal doesn't record sound. So when they people watch the video, I add some music to it, so it's pleasant to watch. But we went out to this one location. We actually tried multiple locations that night, but really didn't get anything as far as thermal and night vision. But the sounds were great. I've got some really good stuff. Maybe even to the point where if I can find a way to send it to you, I'd love for you to go through it because you're a little bit better at audio than I am. I don't know Audacity worth a crap. I can't figure it out. So
Yeah, if you'll send it to me, I'll put it in waveform and stick it in Audacity and uh, try to amplify it and everything for you, or at least the important parts.
yeah, I'll try to go back and start all over and timestamp so you'll know where to go to. What'll probably
Well,
end up happening is if I because it's an 8 hour file, so I
all right.
might just mail you the digital recorder so you can have it because it's the type that it has its own USB that pops out and you can just plug it into your computer. Um, it does have an SD card on it, but I don't use one in it. I could probably put one in it, but just send the SD
All
card.
right.
But I'm an audio guy. I like audio. I just don't have the patience to do what I need to do to itemize it and stuff like that. So, but it's
Out of
really good audio. Really, good. I'm impressed with some of it.
yeah, the doing audio is, and I've learned a lot from audio. I mean, even though you can't see what's going on, I mean, you can hear you get a lot from audio itself. um, but that's one of the, I started from scratch, technology wise.
Mm.
I had no interest in any of that stuff unless it was a some kind of sight for a gun. I didn't care much about any technology like that. But the audio is by far the most time consuming thing that there is out there. Having
Absolutely,
to learn, and it's not
absolutely.
just. It'd be one thing if you could just collect it and then go through and get timestamps and send it to somebody who knew what they were doing, and they could quickly go through and do all that. But to start from scratch and to learn how to go through and remove certain sound. Dude, it took me 2 years to figure out how to remove crickets. And I just so happened to stumble on the right video one day. And it was actually some dude that was doing he was doing Bigfoot audio. But watching him, I remember back in EMT school, unfortunately, the guy teaching the class was a doctor. So you have a doctor, the highest level of medicine teaching beginners, the beginner level of medicine, and he just flew through it, and it was almost impossible to keep up. You know what I'm saying? Because his knowledge was so much, and that's kind of what it was like watching this dude. He knows so much about so many different things. But anyway, yeah, it's very very difficult. Um, I was going to say something else too. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Job interview. You had a job interview today, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So yeah, my contract expired where I was at. So and I've decided to take a different career path and try something different. So I did have an interview today. Crossing my fingers, praying really hard that I get the job because it would definitely be extremely beneficial. It's decent pay, not the greatest, but it's pretty good, especially for this local area. That I wouldn't have to drive so far. It's just one town over. It took me 20 minutes to get there. They also supply a company vehicle and a gas card, and I have 401 and medical and all that. So it'd be really good. So I'm
Well,
looking
that's
forward to
good.
that. Yeah, just crossing my fingers. The interview went really well. So basically, I'm just now waiting for emails and links and stuff that I have to sign into. And if that happens, then I'm good to go. Then I have to drive. It's probably close to an hour away. For some reason, the drug testing they can't do local. They have to drive all the way to a single location. But other than that, everything else is local. Background check, stuff like that. So now,
Good.
the one thing I do want to
Good.
say, I want to do in case certain people watch this show. Um, I was a guest at this thing in Ohio, and I want to say that I was treated so well. Um, they catered to everything I needed. They made sure I was well fed. They had a really nice tent for me to stay in. They made sure I was warm. Everything was just fantastic, and that was not just Old Bear and Icebox that were promoting this event. But everybody else there were just fantastic. I can't remember everybody's names, but some was Curtis and Thomas. Bud and Angie were there. Fantastic people. I really like Bud and Angie a lot. Really good people. Really
Yeah, we need to
grounded.
get Bud and
If
Angie
you
on
can
here.
keep them. Yeah, they were awesome to hang out with and stuff like that. And we had some great discussions and stuff like that. We had one incident that kind of changed the schedule a little bit, but we got through it, and that person was you know taken care of and removed. Old Bear was really quick to jump on that incident and take care of it quickly. Him and Tommy both. Icebox. So other than that, everything went great. It was definitely very cold in comparison to Florida. It got down. I want to say maybe the lowest was 49 degrees, which I can handle very easily. But evidently, it's a different 49 degrees in Ohio than it is in Florida. So, first night was,
Well,
I slept okay, but it was miserable.
in your defense, hell is cooler than Florida. So just imagine hell with humidity, and you've got Florida.
Yeah. So, I mean, down here, 49 degrees is tolerable, but it is cold. But there, I mean, you could see your breath, and it was cold. I was wearing a hoodie all night and probably up until about 9 o'clock the next morning, 9, 10 o'clock. Then I could take the hoodie off and wear a regular T-shirt. But those guys were, like I said, Icebox and Obear did a great job. Um, and they treated me very well, very respectful. I enjoyed their company. I tried to make as much time as I could to sit and talk to both of them. Their wives were fantastic. Their wives were sweethearts and made sure I was taken care of. And everybody was really cool. Everybody was really cool. Like I said, there was one person there that was not cool, but that got taken care of fairly quickly, and life moved forward. And we had a great last night around the campfire and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. So it was a good time. It was a good time. Um, I don't know if that opportunity ever rises again, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Matter of fact, Bud and Angie thought you were part of it, and they were expecting to see you there. So openly, I already told you over the phone, but I want to say it publicly that they really, really speak highly of you, Johnny. They can't wait for the opportunity to actually meet you in person, and so I agree. We should get them on the show in the future. That'd be awesome.
Well, Bud and Angie are the type of individuals where, people talk. You know how stuff gets around. Everybody asks, hey, you know this person? What are they like? Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Man, Bud and Angie are about the only people that I've known pretty much since I started doing this that I've never heard a bad thing about them. They're just as nice could be. Bud, he's prior military. He's
Yeah.
they're just people that are just super easy to get along with, and I would love to actually get out with them, get out in the field with them sometimes. So if Bud and Angie are watching, sorry I missed you guys, and hopefully we can get together, and definitely need to have them on the podcast. So
Well, I told them you probably definitely would have an open invite for them to ever come and do some research with you. They have an open invite with me to come down here and do some research. Just fantastic people. Just I definitely great people. Really like them a lot. So, but tonight's show, let's get into that. We have Tricia. She's up in Pensacola. I did not know she was in Florida. That never came up in any discussion in our emails. So she's a Florida girl. She's up in Pensacola. We are having some technical difficulties, guys. I'm going to work on that while the interview is going on and see if I can fix a little bit of that. But let me bring Trish on and get that started. Hey, Trish, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, hear you loud and
Yes,
clear.
clear.
Oh, good. Yay. Hello,
Well,
everybody.
so it kind of set this up a little bit. You sent an email, right? Wasn't it? It was under one of my videos, maybe on the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade.
No, it was.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was. I know the email I saw was it came to Sasquatch Unredacted because you had
Yeah.
messaged me and said had I read it yet and stuff like that, and I said I have, but I hadn't acted on it yet. Then you said you were going to reach out to her.
Yeah, I think it started out with a comment under a video or something like that. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. Anyway, me and Tricia got to talking, exchanged phone numbers, and I found, and I was very, very open when her and I were talking about how personally kind of what my views are, that I definitely lean towards the flesh and blood side of things. I know Richard does. Probably, it's probably split between the people I know 60-40. You know, probably 60% of the people think these things are nothing more than flesh and blood. And then you got the 40% that think anywhere from they're alien beings to interdimensional to spirits to Nephilim. You know, I mean, you've got a wide range of individuals that, or a wide range of views when it comes to these creatures. And just by, I guess, birds of a feather, you know, especially with researchers, we all kind of congregate to the people that kind of believe a little bit the way we do. Well, the thing I noticed about Tricia, very intelligent, but you have ideas on these things that are just way beyond anything that I've ever dove into. And I think
Okay.
as researchers, we kind of have to, it's our responsibility to not pick and choose the information that we take in. So basically, that's all I'm saying is that I think, you know, your views are probably going to be a lot different than a lot of our views. But as researchers, it's our responsibility to try to tap into the information and the experiences that you have. So hopefully that's what, you know, that's why we wanted to have you on. And I think it'd be very interesting. And I'm very, very grateful that you came on knowing all that.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate the open-mindedness for sure.
Right. So how did you, have you ever been on any other podcasts?
Yes, many.
Yeah.
I don't know how many
okay.
exactly, but not like hundreds or anything like that. But
Right.
I don't know. I don't know, like 7. I don't know. Like I'm not sure
Right.
exactly. But yeah, I've definitely had a chance to do what we're doing right now with other podcasts, and then I also was on a YouTube channel called My Bigfoot Sighting. And so I definitely told lots of my kind of story and my experiences on that. And then, you know, talked about my sighting. And that was a few years ago now. So I definitely want to, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. You know, it didn't, you know, for me, it was, you know, I'll tell you my experience. I'll tell you what led me to have the experiences and all that. But, you know, when you're saying that as researchers, in order to be a good researcher in anything, you have to try it Like, right, whether you're like, whether it's like nutritional, right? Like, oh, okay, if I want to lose weight or, have a cleanse, I better do this detox cleanse and see how it works. I can't just say, oh, you know what I mean? Like you have to get out there and want to, see if you can have experiences, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of like what I wanted. But as I was listening to people's experiences, I started to have memories from my life, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I definitely want to tell you guys about that. And then when I realized that I had been, seeing evidence of them, growing up, and then a couple pretty unique experiences, in my earlier years, and then went to Mena, Arkansas, and learned about them in 2018 for the first time, like really like what they do and what they're about, and it just blew my mind. And then when I got back to, because I was living in Georgia at that time, and then I started seeing evidence of them, and then I decided to use my own way to connect to them. And I decided I wasn't going to listen to certain people because I wanted to have experiences in my own way. And then I can teach, and, like what you're talking about, I can add to the conversation about what I've experienced so that we
Now,
can like,
can we go back just I don't know what order you want to do this in, but when you say you went uh, to Arkansas, when did you say 2008?
2018.
2018 to learn
Uh-huh.
about them. What did you mean by that? What did you
Well, I guess
tell
I
us?
mean, like, I went there. I didn't go there to learn about them. Sorry, I didn't say that right. I went there because there is I was listening to a podcast. I started listening to these few different podcasts back in, I don't know, when did it start? 2012, 2013, or so. And Wendy Garrett, she had a really great podcast called Conscious Living, and now she has one called Wendy's Coffee House. And she interviews all these sorts of people who are having all these unique experiences. And so one day she was interviewing this couple that own a crystal mine in Mena, Arkansas. And as I was listening, I found myself sort of, I think, there was that interview, and then there was another one where I found myself hearing little bits and pieces when it came to these Bigfoot things, because I really didn't give it any thought for a long time. And so when I've been liking to travel around the States to places that have special different activity on the land. And so this place, it's called Board Camp Crystal Mine in Mena, Arkansas. And so I flew there because I wanted to go check out this place and go dig for crystals. I have no idea how that was going to go. Do you go into a cave? I had no idea how you get the crystals, like at that time. I love to go to places where I call them the ancient people of the land, where they lived, where their mounds are, where they did their ceremony, where they lived, where they, and connect with the energies. I really like the good energies. I really like the good stuff. And so there's, there's been UFOs stuff there. MUFON's been out there. There's been many shows that have gone out there and like had their episode. Josh, what's his name from Destination Truth or whatever? He's been there. And, so it's so much of a big deal that when you go there, they hand you a piece of paper to fill out to say what experiences you had when you're there. So they have UFO stuff. They had like levitating rocks. They've had orbs. The Sasquatch people have been, the evidence of the Sasquatch people on the land, all that kind of stuff. So all of the things. I wanted to go there for all of the things, but I really did not go there at all to have anything to do with the Sasquatch people at all. I didn't have any thought of that really in my mind. So that's kind of how that started. And so when I went there, the wife, she kind of took me first to it's a giant forest that they have. They started off where they built a giant stage and would have concerts on their land. And then people can come and dig for crystals. And then like one day the whole family was hanging out on the stage. And I think it was the sun saw a light coming from the sky landing into the forest. And that's sort of what started it all with that. The tribe people of the area started teaching them about the Sasquatch people that are on their land. And so she kind of showed me around in the forest where there was the evidence of the UFO activity, or the trail cam stuff, or the levitating rocks, and so she did her part. And then the husband took me to a whole different area in the forest, and he was taking me to an area called the nursery. And they don't let people go out there anymore because they were told that it's too sacred of a place. So I really, really thankful I got to go out there. So it was my first time hearing about these beings that the older Sasquatch people teach the younger Sasquatch people how to make the markers with the trees. And so the little saplings, it's the nursery, like a tree nursery is where it's like the smaller section of the forest, right? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. We just have our microphones off so our background noise doesn't mess you up. So if we don't answer right away, that's all it is.
Okay, yeah. So
definitely that makes sense. Like a little training ground kind of.
Yes. And I was just like, my head was blowing off, like, whoa, like what? I'd never heard anything of this before in my entire life. I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountain. I'm from California. I grew up in a very nice town, Saratoga, which is very close to the Santa Cruz Mountains and, in Silicon Valley, and a very progressive area of the world where all the tech industries are. I grew up in I grew up in 1970. I was born in 1970. So I spent a ton of my life camping and tromping around in the redwood forest, and then also in the foothills of the Sierras, the country. And so I'm very, very into nature and studied it, went to school for park management. I'm a super tomboy. I can do things. I'm like very capable. I have a good sense of direction. I love being outside. I love wildlife. I love nature, blah, 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 all that stuff. Okay. So he's showing me like where these little trees, like the limbs are growing, where there's like a bend and an elbow and then going up and down. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And I'm not like all of a sudden like buying it. You know what I mean? Like I'm just listening. And I'm like, huh, okay. And then he's showing me around. He's showing me like the little sapling where it's pulled down and a log is placed over the top of the so it's like an arch. And then he's showing me these little branches placed here and there, leaning up against trees and stuff like that. And, things like this. And I'm listening. He's a really nice man, like a really, really nice man. I think his name is Orville, like Orville Redenbacher. And both of them really nice people. And so then he's told me that the tribe in that area call the Sasquatch the tree people. And when he said that to me, there was something that it was almost like a explosion of like memory and like all my life of being in the redwood trees and my feeling such comfort and relaxed and peaceful and like more at home in the woods. Not that I didn't feel at home, but I'm just saying like very comfortable in the woods and like this feeling of peace and protected and like safe and all that stuff. And it just something about it really resonated with me when he said the tree people. And so so then he said, if you want to, he took me to another spot and he said, you can wander around if you want. He dug up some crystals for me. I have some still. I gave some away. I left one out at a spot that I've seen a lot of interesting activity going on out there to kind of as a gift to them. And it disappeared. It left its spot. So that was kind of interesting. And so so that was like August of 2018. And so when I came home back to Georgia, after a couple months, I got out into the woods more, and the first thing I saw that was like, whoa, because your like eyes are opened now to stuff that you hadn't even you didn't even know to look at before, and now it's there.
Real quick, what part of Georgia?
Savannah and the outskirts of Savannah. So, okay. Yeah. So there's a little nature preserve that I found called Blue Sky. And I went out there and I'm like, wow, this feels really like almost untouched feeling, like a very, very nice feeling of nature out in the forest, out in these trails. And I was the only one out there, like pretty much every time I went out there. And then only when I posted some stuff on YouTube, and this guy that also lived in Savannah saw my YouTube post, and so I showed him the spot, and then we would go out there sometimes. He would go out there and have it be his research area. And he was like, oh my God, this place is amazing out here. I'm like, I know. Okay. So, but I was at a different location. I was at this area called Fort McAllister in like half hour from Savannah. And I was walking out there and I saw a trunk of a tree up in a tree. And it really stood out to me. I'm like, that makes no sense. Like the wind didn't do that. They didn't come hire a crane to put a trunk. And when I say a trunk of a tree, I mean like, let's say 1.5 to 2 feet or sorry, I don't know how to explain. Like, yeah, let's say 1.5 to 2 feet in diameter. Does that make sense? Like when I say that? And then about 5 feet long, this trunk of a tree just sitting perpendicular, like up in a tree. And there was no trees taller than this tree. And there wasn't that many trees around in this location. So it wasn't like it fell from higher up and landed just, miraculously. And it just stood out. And that was my first thing when I got back to Georgia that made me go, oh, wow. And then I went to this Blue Sky Nature Preserve and I started seeing what I called pickup sticks, which is like these weirdly arranged, long, tall, skinny pines, the dead ones, just weirdly arranged in the forest. And then I would see these weavings of like the saplings. And so there was something about it out there that I could feel that there was something going on out there. And so this is kind of where, and then I reached out on Facebook land and I said, is there anyone, I was so like not knowing about what they were about. Like I said, does anyone know of like what the Sasquatch people do or whatever? And so someone said that they told me about this podcast called Dixie Cryptid, and where people will, send in their, okay, yeah. Okay. And so, oh my God, I started like binge listening. I was so fascinated. And at that time when I was living in Georgia, I'm like, in Savannah, I'm like, what am I doing here? I felt so out of bounds in my own life, like out in the weeds. Like I'm from California where there's mountains and lots of trails and fresh water and like ups and downs. And like, it's so flat there. And so I really, really loved hearing everybody's stories, and then where they were hunting or fishing or camping. And I was like, I miss being in the, I miss the mountains. And the stories of the really special stories where they were helped, or they had a connection, or they had a healing, just really like those ones, like the gentle, the really, those stories were my favorite. And so while I was listening, so now this is like 2018 and then 2019. Now we're in 2019 and is when I'm really listening to, Dixie Cryptid. And then I all of a sudden like started having like flashbacks from my life. And what I first remember is an experience I had in 2005 when I saw one, where one like ran right in front of me when I was mountain biking. And then an experience from 2000 or 1996 when I was in the mountains of Idaho. And then I remember.
Go back to that. Don't move forward. Tell us about the one where it ran in front of you.
Okay. So I was mountain biking, and I was in Auburn, California, in the mountains, and I was doing like for real mountain biking, right? Like I have a really nice mountain bike. I was on a single track trail, and there was we were down inside the trees, up in like, I don't know, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet elevation. I don't know exactly. And I had just started seeing this guy. We were kind of, starting, dating or whatever. And he had a mountain bike. And so we were out mountain biking. And so I was first, and it was sort of a rolling hills, and weaving around, like, this specific spot was not super steep. It was just a kind of a fun maneuvering around on this trail where it's just lots of trees, just down inside the trees. And it was in the summer. And so on the ground would be lots of pine needles, lots of, dead leaves, things like that. And I was first. He was a couple minutes behind me. And all of a sudden, from right to left, this fur rug went in front of me, not cutting me off, not that close, but like 25 or so feet in front of me. Pretty, that's kind of close, and there, it went really fast. It was like, there's a little bird like shooting through the forest, like, it was like it moved really fast. And so basically, I'm going to just tell you, there was no arms or legs or head. It was just the midsection. Okay. So this being, which I feel it was a he, decided to let me know he was there at that moment. And he was showing me him being interdimensional right there. That was my first sighting, was him showing me that he can partially materialize. And he chose to show his like his the torso, let's say. Okay. And so it took me a long time in my life, and especially once I started listening to other people's stories and what they see and the different experiences, and then like really thinking about what do animals do? Like, what do bears do? What do bears do and what do they not do? And like, they can move fast. They have to build up speed to get to going like 40 miles per hour or whatever they can get to, the grizzlies or whatever. This was like, it was so fast, but at the same time, I remembered seeing I'm going to call it that it looked like hair, but really, really, really thick, wavy hair, like 3 inches thick with a wave in it, like almost an S. Like, I have a dog that's a mini Aussie mix. So he has sort of a thick, wavy coat. And that's the only way I can describe it. But it was really thick. And it was like reddish brown. And then he crossed in front of me. And then gone. So there wasn't like crunch, 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 what you would hear if it was an animal running up the hill. And there was no arms or legs or head. There was like, I didn't see any arms or legs or head. It was just literally like if you take a fur rug that's laying on the ground, and then now all of a sudden you pick it up and now it's like hanging down. That's like what went in front of me. And then there was no sound. And then there was this lingering scent, and it smelled kind of horsey, like musky, horsey, like that lingered in the air. Almost sweet. Like, it was definitely not like garbage. It did not smell bad. I think it was like he was leaving his pheromone for me, like, hello, and so that was in like 2005, 2006. But as I'm, was remembering my earlier experiences, I remember walking in, through the Santa Cruz Mountains where there's all the.
Can I stop you for a second? Ask a question real quick.
Ask questions. Yes.
So, so you're saying that whenever you went to this place in 2018 and it unlocked these memories, like these aren't memories that you had just thought about?
It was the interest of the way it was introduced to me, like how my introduction to the tree people was in 2018, and then starting to see the evidence of the tree structures and stuff in 2019, and then like finding the Dixie Cryptid podcast and hearing all their stories, and then like hearing people talking about being at a river or like being in the woods. And then then I started having, then my memories started coming back, like, holy shit, like that one time.
What did you think about that before you went and learned all these things in the podcast and everything? After you experienced that, what was your mind telling you back then before you knew anything about Sasquatch? I mean, because that's obviously.
Thank you for asking that. Okay, so this is my truth. This is when I even had a first thought of what they were about, my thought was the most logical explanation is that they are interdimensional and or can cloak. that to me was the most logical explanation as to why it is, especially back earlier. Now it's like more and more and more people are seeing them, but like, and there's, my thoughts on that, but to me, that's what my very first thought, like, but it really was a glimpse, because I was, really into the, afterlife, spirits, connecting to angels and archangels, and my connection to nature spirits and plants and animals and all that stuff, was more in my thoughts. So does that answer the question? Like, that was my, like, back when I was listening
I'm just trying to make sure, and forgive me, when did this sighting happen?
The sighting
What year was that?
In like 2005 or 2006.
Okay,
and
that's what I'm getting at is, so the sighting happened in 2006, but
yeah,
you learning about everything happened in 2018, 2019. But in 2006, you didn't know anything about cloaking or interdimensionality or anything when it
oh,
came to Sasquatch.
my
Right?
mind was that was a bear. Okay, because
That's kind of what I was getting at, is like, what did you think about seeing this headless thing right in front of you? If you didn't have a reference for Sasquatch, then I would imagine that would be extremely shocking to see something like that.
It was like I kept playing it over in my mind, like, wait a second, there was no arms or legs or head. It was just literally the midsection. It was just this square rug, like, shoo, crossing the trail in front of me. Like, he chose to show himself to me, which it sounds weird, but it wasn't creepy or anything. And it didn't scare me. It was just like, huh, wow, I saw a bear. Like, that was like all I had in my mind to think about at that time. I mean, I grew up in, close to the Santa Cruz Mountains, very close to Santa Cruz Mountains, the Sierras. I was around a lot. And I remember seeing I don't know how many times, was it one time, two times, three times? I don't know. Throughout my earlier years, the occasional person being interviewed on the news showing their cast of a Bigfoot print. And I didn't give it any thought. And there's even a Bigfoot museum that I have been in when I was a kid. Right. And I just didn't, it just wasn't something I didn't think about it. And my parents never said anything. And I'm not talking to my dad, but I would be very curious to have a conversation with him about this, because I wonder, I mean, okay, so when I got back home to the Savannah area and I started walking around in these particular woods, that one that's called Blue Sky, I started taking my knowledge of the spiritual side of things and deciding that I wanted to let every Sasquatch being around the world, to let them know how thankful I am to them for being with me in my life. Because I started like feeling like they've been around me my whole life. And so I went out to these woods and I said thank you to them. And I said, I want to be friends. I want to learn about you. Will you teach me? And I was like, oh my God, to think about the idea of to be able to be, invited to places where people don't know where they are, and like to sit and commune with them, and like to be able to kind of watch, how like Native American people have powwows and they have their thing and they do their ceremony, and like sometimes that you can ask if you can watch, and you have to follow, like you have to be respectful while you're there and like follow what they say to do and not to do. So I took all my studies of like shamanism and like, being a good person and like asking if I can, know you, can you show me, all that. And I cried, and I just was like, I think that they've been with me since I was a little kid. And so I was like, I took the trees as microphones and I talked to the trees, and I was like, as if I was talking to all the trees through the root system, like around the whole world, saying to all the Sasquatch people, I would love to know you and be friends. And will you teach me and show me and, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So a couple days after that, and this now, 2019, I went to a friend of mine, his property. He lives in Ellabelle, Georgia, which is about a half hour from Savannah. And it's totally in the country. It's total country out there. And there's a lot of stuff that has been going on that land.
Quick question. Is that going, is that how close to Augusta is that? Have you any idea?
I think a couple hours. I'm not exactly sure. It's not real close.
Okay.
Maybe farther. So Savannah, do you know where Savannah is?
Yeah, I know where Savannah is.
Okay, so Savannah is So Ellabelle is only a half hour from Savannah. Augusta is like a drive to get there.
Okay.
It's okay. So anyway, so I went out there to visit him, and I was really now looking around at around his area, and like went to the Ogeechee River, which is not far from where he lives, and I started seeing structures out there and these areas where, wow, it looks like a family room out here in the woods. Like the branch, the leaves, it's just dirt. Like it just seemed like people had been walking around out there, but this is private land. And the guys that year decided, the guys that hunt there, his cousins, they decided to go to a completely northern Georgia, way far away. They were not there that season. So I was the only one walking around out there, and I was seeing evidence of like, tree manipulations and things like that. And I was tripping out. And I was like, this is trippy. This is amazing. And so I was deciding on, which stories do I want to listen to? What people do I want to listen to that are going to be, that I can hear about stuff? Like I learned about the owls and how they can make callings. And like, I'm like, wow, that's super fascinating. I want to hear that. And so I was out there, and there's a guy that lives in a camper, like on his brother's 8 acres. That's next door to his 8 acres. So I knocked on his door. I'm like, hey, are you having any experiences out here? I'm just like, that was my investigatorness. I'm like, he had said that he was having some like knocking on his door. And I'm like, okay, is this like ghost things? Is this spirit activity, or is this the Sasquatch people? And so we were standing outside, and a couple of days before that, when I was out there, I heard like an owl call in the middle of the day. And then I heard a response, like kind of near where one of the cousins, what do you call it? Hunting, not cabin, but hunting space where he keeps their, the tarps up and their boxes there. And like, but no one was there. They were way in a different area of the state. There was no one there. So I was like, wow. And there was something about it stood out to me, in my life of hearing wildlife. It made almost like it's not like literally my body tingled when it happened, but something really resonated when I was hearing, like, it was almost like one was saying, she's here, right here. And the other one was like, okay, or, I don't know, but doing it through like owl calls. And so that happened first. And then I went and talked to the guy, and we were standing outside, and it was that time of the day where it was like right before dusk, and the insects come out and they're super chirping. And so we were standing like 10 or 15 feet apart from each other. We're facing each other. And all of a sudden, I hear what I call it the man yell. It was a like deep male vocal that sounded like a guy that was over in the cousins hunting 8 acres. It was like it was like the sound of AH. Ah, it was like, ah, and then like when it happened, I was like, and then the guy, oh my God, he had a look on his face like, holy fuck, what was that? And I just kind of just stayed poker face. And I was like inside myself, like, oh my God, that's amazing. No way. So that was the first time I heard a vocal it was in Ella Belle, Georgia. So I finished talking to him, went home, and I lived in a suburbs in this area called Berwick, a little bit outside of Savannah, that had woods and wetlands that went for acres and acres and acres, like lots of protected wilderness, like out there. And I don't know how many days later it was. It could have been a week later. I heard the man yell in the woods, right outside my suburbs that I was in. And it was like, was that just some dude? But it was the exact same tone. It was the same, oh. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I had talked to a neighbor who was talking about all the owl calls that she was hearing. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. So then, so that was 2019. Basically, I'm going to say that I have heard that exact same AH man yell call, not only in 2 areas a half hour from each other, but then I also heard 2 vocals of the man yell when I was in Montana the next year. So the moment, like it was almost like the moment that I gave the green light, like they had been waiting for me to say something. Like, yes, I want to know you. Tell me, show me. And then like it's been like, this, that. And so I've had so after go ahead.
So you think you pretty much instigated this, is what you're saying?
No, because they did. Like they've been with me, I feel, since I was a little kid, because, so back when I was a kid and I would wander through the trees, just wander around, explore out there in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I would see, and then throughout my life, I don't know how many times, I'm going to say 3 or 4 times I have seen where, like, let's say 6-foot branches, like 30 of them lined up, like leaning up against a redwood tree or, something like that. And I'm like, who did this? Like the pagans? Or is there some sort of pagan ceremony going on out here? Did the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, like, teenagers, I remember seeing that. And then in 1996, I went on a road trip from California to the mountains of Idaho on a fishing trip with a boyfriend. And we stopped to, we were in the mountains. I mean, we were like in a area where there was only trees and the Lochsaw River, I think it was, and canyons. And we were down inside this canyon and just trees for miles and acres and just nothing out there. Like this day that I had this experience in 1996, there was no other cars that went past by us the whole day. And I grew up fishing. Like I grew up doing all this stuff. And so he sucked at it. And so he would like lost all his lures or whatever. And so and I think he was just in a bad mood. He wanted to get away from me for a while. I'm like, go ahead. Like, you can go to the store, which was like a 25-mile drive or something. And so we stopped along this river where there was a downward slope, this embankment that was just covered in small boulders on the one side. And then it was a deep section of the river where to me, it felt like it was a deep section of the river. It was like a dark color. The water was moving slow. It was maybe 40 feet across. And so he left. And so I'm like, I'm going to be out here by myself for probably about an hour. It was an amazing day. Super pretty out. I mean, I grew up doing this. I feel so safe and so comfortable. I don't mind it at all. I didn't mind it at all. And I look around, okay, behind me, there was a tall embankment, and then just trees for days, just packed with pine trees, just really thick with pine trees. And then across the river was a really pretty, just pristine sand beach. And I was like, wow, okay, that's neat. And then there was like a really big, tall boulder at the very back of this beach. And then there was a pretty steep incline just going up. A person could probably walk it, but it was kind of steep, going a slant uphill. So I noticed right away there was this line of footsteps in the sand that went from the water to the tree line, straight back of the beach. And again, the only thing I can think of at that time in my life was bear, because what else could it be? Like, we were so out there that it's not like there was a person out there. So, and this happened really quick. So I look behind me, there's no mountain lion going to jump on me. Okay, I look across, oh wow, look at these footsteps. And then up in the tree line, like kitty corner to the left, about, let's say, not quite a football field, like let's say 50 yards, 75 yards up in the trees. It was very thick of trees, but then there was a spot that kind of had a bare, just dirt, sort of grassy knoll spot. And right above that, I heard this giant tree crack sound that I had never heard before and at that time in my life, I was 26-ish. And I literally had been going to the country and the mountains since I was an infant. And I'd never heard that. And it was very quiet. You know, when you're in the woods, when you're way far away from city, it's quiet. It's peaceful. You don't hear anything other than birds or the water. And it was just very quiet. So it stood out. It like echoed this crack. It was so loud. And my God, my eyes like, whoa, what did that? And I was trying to pinpoint where did I hear that coming from? So my eyes sort of went to a spot up there. And then I started hearing what sounded like something was just flinging a little tree around, like whoosh, 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 like the sound of swishing branches or something up there. And I was like, all I could think of, like, is like a bear, like hitting up against a tree or something, like. And then I'm like, oh my God, am I going to now see a bear start coming down the hill back towards me? And so I stared up at that spot, intent, like my eyes were like bugging out, and then nothing. So that was one of the memories that came to me. And so as I was putting it together, this is what I feel, is that he was saying to me, those are mine. That was my footsteps. That's me. I'm right here. Because in my studies of them, that there are these guardians of the forest, and that they position themselves strategically in the mountains. And they have abilities. We have abilities. Our human apparatus, we have our 5 physical senses, and then we have our inner senses. We just do. That's just part of our vehicle, as our who we are as humans. So I feel that their senses are so heightened because they haven't been desensitized from technology and blah, 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 blah. And I'll just leave it at that for now. So I feel like he was watching me and knowing I was like, okay, I'm looking over there. Okay, I noticed this, the sand, the tracks in the sand. And then, so I think he was letting me know that's me. And so when I thought about that, it literally brought tears to my eyes, because I feel like he was letting me know that he was there. And so after a little while, a very short while, I realized I was okay. And then I just went back to totally enjoying myself out there. And it was literally like a non-issue for the rest of the time. I don't even remember, like time just went by. And then my boyfriend showed back up, and then I showed him the footsteps. I even took pictures on my disposable camera, and I lost lots of my pictures, like back in 2009. My mom had a mental issue, and she stole lots of my things, lots of my dad's things, blah, blah, blah. But so I realized that happened. And this is, one of those things where you have to be there and have the experience to really, feel it. You know what I mean? But it just made me feel like, oh, wow, I'm in the club, like they like me, they it wasn't to scare me. It was to let me know, like, those are mine. I did that. Okay. So that was, so I had the tree thing, all these branches lined up, standing next to each other, earlier in my life. Then he's now showing himself to me. And to me, it's like when you asked me about the initiating, or what'd you say? Not initiating. Did you say that word, initiating? Instigating. Thank you. Yeah.
Instigated.
Yeah, instigating. So I feel like the way that I'm being shown things is of a interdimensional like way, because there's more things, that have continued to happen. When so after I had, where I heard the man yell, literally I was in my backyard. That was, let's say it was July or August of 2019. So then in like October of 2019, I drove up to Paris Mountain State Park, which is in upstate South Carolina, because I was curious to see what might I connect with, or if they'd like to connect with me there. And it happened on the third night I was there, where it was the same sort of thing, where the sun was going, like, not quite down yet. The insects were coming out, singing, super, doing their chirping. And then I heard an owl vocal. And then it was like north, south, east, west. Owl call north, owl call south, owl call east, owl call west. In these strategically, way over there and way over there, in this super miles of acres of forests. And then it was a night that was so dark. I didn't have a flashlight and I was like, I can't see anything. And so my camp spot had like a cement slab where you park your car. I parked my truck. And then there was a downhill slope next to my cement parking spot. And so there were these very tall pines in this spot. And I was just standing right there. And all of a sudden, I heard in the trees, way up in the trees, right out in front of me, like right out in front of me, like up in the trees, like 4 or 5 owl call, like ooh, 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 ooh. And then inside those calls, I was hearing even more like almost like primal man vocal that was like whoa, 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 whatever. And I was like, whoa, wow, whoa. And so it literally like made me start walking towards the trees. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to go downhill. If I keep going, I'm not going to be able to get any closer to them, whatever that was. So they were like suddenly out there in front of me. And so what I feel is that they came to check me out.
Real quick question. This is up in the trees or ground level?
Way up in the trees, in the tall areas, the tall tree, like the tallest areas of the trees, like at the tips of the trees or whatever. I don't know if it was the tips of the trees, but I'm just saying like, those skinny pines, the skinny tall pines, way up there, way up.
Well, I guess a quick question then, how, and this seems obvious, but why did you not just think they were owls? What made you think that they were actually Sasquatch?
I didn't think that they were owls because the sound, first of all, the sounds of them, and the fact that owls don't do that. They don't do that. They don't all of a sudden gather together all of a sudden. Like it was all of a sudden, like bam, they were all there, a bunch of them together. And they were talking, about, wow, like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know if they're like, here, I'm here. I don't know. Because you would hear like bird ruffling and like that owls don't do that. They don't conjugate together like that. Okay. They don't do that. And so inside those initial, was like what made me really go, whoa, was these couple extra additional, almost trying to camouflage around the owl vocals, this primal man-like noises. That's the only way I can try to, convey. And then also this feeling of it pulled me towards them. Like there was this feeling of wanting to go to them that came over me. So all I was able to do was walk to the edge of the cement because it would have just made me start going downhill. I wouldn't have gone any closer. So right after that, for some reason, I had this urge to check my voicemail. Now, this is part of the story. So, no, sorry. I wanted to call my friend who I had shown at this section of the forest. I wanted to tell him, oh my God, this just happened. And so when I started about to call him, I saw that I had a voicemail message. So for some reason, I'm like, I'm going to check my voicemail message. So I started dialing the code, and then I'm holding the phone up. And then right before the message starts, I hear a man's voice say the word renegade. And it was like done like almost like an advertising voice, like almost like, you know, when you're checking your voicemail and like it sort of is an advertisement and it's kind of cut off, so you only hear part of it. But I'm like, whoa, what was that? So I went back and I listened to every single one of my like saved voicemail messages, not there, not there, not there, not there, and then got to the new message and it wasn't there. And so what I feel, you know, in my putting this together now over the years, now that we're now in 2025, and this was, you know, October of 2019, and I'm still trying to make sense of it. I'm like, is this a spirit guide? Was it a spirit? But I feel like this one particular one had a telepathic moment with me and was able to do that when I was listening, when I was like tuning in, thinking I was going to hear my phone. And he took that opportunity to say the word renegade to me. And to me, it makes sense because I'm kind of a rebel. Like, I'm kind of like, you guys all go that way, I'm going this way. Like, I'm not a lemming, you know. And so I kind of take it as a compliment. Like he was calling me, they were calling me a renegade, is what I feel. So that happened. And then so the next thing was in 2020, I left Georgia in mid-May. I escaped Georgia and went across the states and then I ended up being in Eureka, Montana, which is very northwest, very close to the border of Canada. And I ended up staying in there for 6 months, and I had some unique experiences there. And I went camping in June at this lake. And at this time, you know, it's remote. Where I was at, totally remote. Like to drive to the town of Kalispell or Whitefish, where all the stuff is, you know, where all the mall is, and like it's an hour drive. So I was the little town, there's these little tiny little towns that were even smaller than the town of Eureka. So I was in a town called Fortine. And I was like, I'm going to camp. I'm going to car camp. I'm going to hang out at this lake. And I had my dog and my parrot with me. And I'm going to tell you, they've been with me during lots of my experiences. They have seen some things too, and they have been welcomed and they've been included and they've never been scared. So it was like the fun of having my fire in the fire pit and watching the bats and the sun going down. And I'm like, okay, I had the seats down in my Toyota 4Runner and I had a nice cozy mattress and all ready for bed. And so I don't know what time it was. Let's just say it was 11 o'clock. I don't know. It was very dark out, very quiet. There's no houses anywhere near where I was. Just land, trees, slopes, some fire roads, logging roads, just lots of trees and wilderness. And all of a sudden, I hear the man yell. I could not believe it. I could not believe it. It was like, oh, like out, way across the lake, like to the left of the lake, up in the slope. And I was like, no way. And then I heard a response manual call. Like if, let's say, the first one was east, the next one was west. And then I said, I thought to myself, or I just spoke to them in my mind. And I said, please do not come over here and stick your face in the window and scare me. Don't do that. Please don't do that to me. But I still covered my head and they didn't scare me and, whatever. But the fact that, I've done some research about this particular tone, the tone and the length of the vocal and the sound and all of that. And this is where it's going to sound weird, but I don't care. Like, because this is my experience and this is how I get to add to the story. And I even on one podcast, I showed a chart that the sound AH corresponds to the tone, like if it was a tuning fork, to the tone of F, and it corresponds to the energy center of the heart. And literally and I went to school for energy healing and metaphysics, and I'm not new, like you may, like, I don't know, but it's possible that this is you hearing this for the first time, but there's a lot of people out in the world that know what I'm talking about. Like every energy center has a tone and a color and a sound and, all this. And so it's very interesting to me that for whatever reason, they are choosing to do the exact sound with me. I don't know why, but it is what it is. So that was like, let's say mid-June of 2020. And then the next thing that happened was in early July, and I sent pictures, and I don't think you guys are going to be able to show them, right? Like, cause it's just audio, but.
Well, yeah, we're trying to transfer everything to where we can, put the episodes on Spotify. And if we spend 20 minutes going through stuff that you got to look at and all that good stuff, then it's the people on Spotify will be like, what in the world are you doing? You're wasting my time. So that's why but Richard didn't know that going into that I was setting all that up. So you basically sent him a bunch of email. But what we're going to do is on the Facebook page is we'll take the stuff that you did send us and we can put it on the Facebook page and then link it to this. That way people have a reference to look at. So
perfect.
You didn't waste your time. You didn't waste your time, but it's not going to get used the way you probably want it to right now.
It's okay. I want to, it's like, it's kind of fun to be able to actually have some evidence, which I don't go out looking for evidence. Like, I got to take a picture.
Evidence. Yeah, my evidence is, I walk around like RoboCop. I'm covered in cameras and recorders and everything else. So evidence is.
Okay. So. Right. So in I think it was July 10th. I'm not exact, but somewhere in there. Okay. So basically I'm going to finally openly speak about what happened to me at this time in my life. I was talking to a guy named Todd Standing. And before I moved from Georgia, when I was still living in Georgia, we decided that I was going to move to Canada and work with him and do expeditions with him wherever he has his site in Canada. And so I was going to rent a room at his house and then work for him with helping him with the expeditions that people go out. And I thought that was going to be happening. I was totally ignoring that there was COVID going on and this pandemic. And I'm like, that's not my life. I'm ignoring all that. And so there's a guy that was super excited for me. So he sponsored me. Like Todd Standing said that I needed to pay him $1,500 to be able to, so that he can buy whatever equipment or that the training price or whatever for me. And so this guy was really nice to support me and
But you
pay.
were working for him though, right? Or
That
working
was
with
going to be the
him?
plan. That was going to be the plan. Yes. Yeah. That at least what I thought. At least that's what I was under the impression of. So, and we were gonna have it be that sometime in June was when I was gonna go over there, and then but we were gonna kind of keep it flexible, and so it turned into that I couldn't go, right, because the border was closed, and he would only give me back $500. And I now needed to figure out where I was going to live. And so I was
Now, what was his reasoning for that?
oh, it's non-refundable. The $1,000 is non-refundable. Okay. So he kept money that I needed to live on and to find rent. You know, luckily some really nice locals in Eureka, Montana, this man let me borrow a camper that had been sitting in his, you know, that he bought from a friend. And he said, well, would you be okay with staying in a camper? I'm like, yes, I would love that. And then the owners of this amazing RV park, they weren't even there. Like everything was shut down in this town. It was like the first time since like whatever, when the trading days from Canada to Montana, where like the locals had barely any income because they were so used to getting their income from the Canadians. And so the owners also, they happen to live in California. So they let me stay in their RV park. And I was totally I was the only one in this whole RV park. And it's a minute drive to the border of Canada, the most amazing scenery that you can imagine. Ancient lands where glaciers went past and the ancient people of the land did ceremony on this land, and a super amazing location. So I was in heaven. I was like, this is amazing. I feel so fortunate and so relieved and lucky that these nice people were helping me. So this particular, I had decided I'm going to make a fire pit. I'm going to make a fire pit. I'm going to look around and find these rocks, and I'm going to make my own fire pit. I'm going to make a fire. I'll have fire ceremony. And so this night I filmed my fire in my fire pit, and it's pitch black out there. And the pictures that I sent pictures in the daytime so that a person could have perspective of, you know, because the video is totally in the dark and you can see the fire. And then I scan to the right of the fire and you can barely see my dog. She's laying on her bed. And then I pan back to the fire and then I filmed for like 37 seconds or whatever. And then I stopped and I went back to my life. And I didn't watch the video for like 2 years. And so I finally watched the video and I couldn't believe it. There was like a being standing like 3 feet in front of the fire pit with us during that time. And you can clearly see the eye shine. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Like, I had no idea that it was there. Like, not even. I was so enjoying myself. I was doing stuff I had wanted to do in my life, and I was experiencing it. And so to me, the fact that this being chose to be there with me, you know, in my experiences, it's all good stuff. There's nothing scary. They're not there to hurt me. I've never had, like, my experiences are all very gentle and interesting. And, you know, so I definitely want people to look at that. I have a YouTube channel called Exploring the Paranormal with Tricia Brown. It's also on there. It's also, you can watch it on that too. So that happened, which I didn't realize until later. So the next thing that happened was on August 4th, I was still staying in this amazing RV park, and the turkeys were walking past, and the season was changing a little bit, and the sun stayed it stayed light until like 10 at night. It was just amazing. So my 50th birthday, and I decided I wanted to go for a hike along this particular area that had been railroad tracks that they turned into a trail that weaved along the Tobacco River. And I had seen that there is a spot that you can go down the one side of the embankment, and that it was probably in the winter, it's a very big section of the river. But now that it was the summer, it was a very small spot. Now it's like a creek with all these river rocks that are just open, you know, not just dry river rocks. And there's an S turn in this section. And I wanted to go out there. I brought my it's called a Crazy Creek chair that you can fold and sit in it, or you could lay it out flat and lay on it. And I just brought that. I brought a book called Interdimensional Sasquatch by I think his name is Kawani Laparatus. I could be saying that wrong. Sorry if I said that wrong, but I'm like going to bring my book. I had my dog and my parrot with me. I brought my beer, my one beer, and I was going to sit and enjoy myself out there. So I get everything all set up, and I sit down and I look over upstream a little bit, and I see what looks like, is that an otter? Is that a beaver? I'm like, what is that? And I'm like looking at it, and it's kind of milling around on the other side of the creek near the edge of the water. And then I looked away, and then I looked back, and it was gone. I'm like, oh, okay, it went up into the grass. It's gone. And then right after that, I all of a sudden start hearing a deer behind me snorting. So I turn around and I stand up, and now there's this buck suddenly there, and he's totally snorting at me, and he's like 40 feet away from me. And I'm like the type of person, I talk to the animals. Hi, I'm Tricia. This is Manny. This is Lucy. And then I kind of do a little bit of mimicking the snorting. And then I was like, well, thanks for saying hi. And then I just turn around and I sat back down and I picked back up my book. And then all of a sudden, splash, there is like a volleyball sized, I'm guessing, rock that is now landed right out in front of me in the water. Splash, like I popped up so fast, like, whoa. Oh, wait, sorry, let me back up a little bit. Okay, so after I saw the deer, I sat back down and I heard a tiny kaplunk upstream. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to see like the otter or the beaver or whatever swimming around. And I'm looking and looking and looking and looking. And I'm like, that's weird. I heard a kaplunk, like a tiny kaplunk in the water. So then I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I start reading again. And then all of a sudden, splash, like right out in front of me, like in the deepest section of the water, which was probably only like maybe 4 feet deep or something. And I stood up so fast. Oh my God. I was like, whoa, whoa. And now I'm like looking around and whoa. And I'm like, not sure now how to take this. And then there was a side of me, because of all my years of other experiences, like seeing apparitions and, why didn't I say something? Like when you have an experience, sometimes it's so sudden and you don't want to take your eyes off of it because you're like, I don't want to miss this. This is amazing. And so you're just staring. And so it just occurred to me like, okay, here's my chance to like speak to whoever just did that. And I said, am I bothering you? Do you not want us to be here? And then I said, can I watch you do that? Will you do that again? Can I watch you do that? Would that be okay? So after I asked that, like literally like maybe 2 seconds goes by and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should go. So I look down for just a second to like start picking up my stuff. And all of a sudden, third rock, splash, like lands in the same spot as the second one. And I saw the last second, like the display of the water and the splash. And then I started feeling like, okay, I'm not sure how to take this. Like, this is like sort of my the micro moments as it's happening. It was like, are they playing with me? Are they around me right now and I just can't see them? Is he standing right on the other side of the river and just dropped a rock straight down into the water? Or is there one up on the ridge and he has such good aim and he just aimed it and lobbed it and landed it right in the exact spot? And then I just felt like, I have a feeling I should go. Like there was just that feeling like, I feel like I should go. And so I left. And I just got my stuff and I just left and I walked away and went and did something else. And I feel like the possibility of either they were having fun with me. I feel like the possibility was they shape-shifting to cloak himself so that he could be near me as a deer. Were they having fun? Like some people, like, in my process, were they juveniles having fun with me? Or was it, we don't want you here? Or was it, there's a bear nearby and we're trying to help you? I more feel like it was something gentle, right? I have never felt like they're trying to hurt me or scare me, like in any sort of way. So that was pretty significant of an experience. I was like, wow, because like there's no way a human could have thrown it that far from where the trail was. And I'm like looking at where the trail is and there's no one over there. So like there was no one out. Like I no one did anything out there. Like people didn't go and do exploring. Like they were indoor people. So that was in August. And I want to also add, I want to just say, like, during that time frame while I was there, I suddenly had a symbol etched on my back. And I took pictures. And like suddenly one day I started working at a company that's in Eureka. And I felt like something was on my back. I like put my hand up And it was like, is my bra strap too tight? Like, what is that? And I could feel almost like, is that an indent in my skin or is that a welt? Like, what is that? And then I went back to what I was doing. And then later in the day, I started feeling sort of like a tingling back there. And I was trying to reach around and take pictures of my back. And I could not believe my eyes. Like literally, it was like somebody took like some sort of instrument and scraped onto my skin a symbol. And so I asked on Facebook land, like, hey, are there anyone out here like that knows symbols, like shamanic symbols? And so this couple, on Messenger, I showed them the pictures, and they're like, yep, that is 2 shamanic symbols put together. And they taught me how like a shaman could use their own symbol or a universal symbol. They can combine symbols. And so this was 2 symbols combined that meant purification and healing and giving and healing. And so I feel like I was helped at that moment. And then also like I had this sort of flash in my mind of like when you earn the merit badge when you're in like Girl Scouts. Like I don't know. Like I'm just saying like that was another experience that I had while I during those 6 months that I was in Montana. So then I left Montana. The big snow was coming. The guy, okay, let me just tell you that the guy, Todd Standing, during that time frame, also my dog had a ruptured growth on the base of her tail that had to be dealt with. And I was homeless, and he wouldn't give me back my money. And he knew what was going on in my life. And I reached out on Facebook land and asked for support, which I'd never done anything like that before in my life. And so my dog's tail had to be amputated. And then we had some like radiation treatments. And so this lady, Judy Spera, which is they're part of like the paranormal world of Ed and Lorraine Warren. She's the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren. She helped me with those treatments. But he gave me $25. Like I just wanted to finally just say it. Like I just have been like not saying his name but I just want to tell people out there in the world, like he is not a nice guy. Okay.
Well, everybody knows who Todd Standing is. Everybody knows who he is.
Yeah. You know, and some people like him, and I just want to say the truth.
What we already know about Todd Standing. So
yeah.
Matter of fact, we got a show coming up soon, and a guy that spent $3,500 to go to Todd Standing and hang out with him for a few days and do some research and stuff like that. So then I'm bringing him on the show specifically to asking questions about Todd Standing and his experience and stuff like that. So that'll be coming up here in the next week or two.
I also want to mention that. What?
We're getting close to 2 hours, so.
Okay. Do you want to hear more stories?
Well, I think we're probably. It sounds like you got a lot more stories.
Yeah, I do.
we might have to do a part 2.
Let's do. I do want to do that. I want to tell you about when I teleported. That's a huge thing in my life that happened.
You'll have to wait for part 2 for that one.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yes, it is. It was freaking insane.
Teleporting.
Yes, my animal's with me too. And then, they've continued to let me know that they're there. I have, there's Mike Patterson. He has where they come into his house. I had that experience. And I have pictures and video of the wet footsteps inside the house. That is also very interesting. Also showing me I'm interdimensional. I'm listening to what you tell me, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I would love to continue telling you on another, as we continue part 2.
Yeah. Because you're going to be rushed if you start with something like that right now. Don't want you to be rushed, but we do really appreciate it. And it's, At this point, that's really all I could do was listen. I don't have uh, I haven't spent my life studying that kind of stuff like you have. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this is all something that's, I have my own spiritual beliefs, but they're pretty rudimentary when it comes
Yeah.
to my beliefs and God and all that stuff. And I've experienced enough to know that there is a spiritual side of reality. The
Yes.
the thing that gets me when it comes to specifically Sasquatch is
Mm-hmm.
there are things that Sasquatch does that scream um, living, breathing creature slash primate, maybe person type situation that sticks to patterns, and just does all these things that you wouldn't think they would need to do if they had these abilities. That's where
I
sometimes
know. I know.
it almost makes me wonder if we're just not simply people are not just simply dealing with different things.
Right.
Like maybe
Yes.
there's and it's not to say that I don't believe what you have dealt with and the things you've experienced in your life, because like I said, I've experienced very, very profound, life-changing spiritual events, right? Did an entire
Yeah.
documentary on it. So I get that. But that's
Yeah.
where it's always been, and I guess that's
I
why
know.
I'm so, and that's the push-pull when it comes to this
Right.
is
I know.
the way when me and Richard, the way we uh, go forward with all this is evidence. But
Yeah.
when you're going from your perspective, evidence is not even possible when you
No,
kind
I
of,
do have evidence. I do have evidence.
well, I mean, right, but I mean evidence, not necessarily the evidence of their existence, but evidence of the other, like the spirituality stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like that would
yeah.
be that would, I guess, would be, and I guess that's when you would bring, the people that are involved in paranormal investigations and all that. Like, how do
Well,
you prove
I have
that?
done that. Well, the when we get to the next episode, and I'm showing you these footsteps, like he came, like he didn't open the door and come into the house, and so it's showing different degrees of drawing. Like the two footsteps are only 1 foot. It's like just the right foot, and they're drawing at two different speeds. And basically, he's saying like, "Look at me, I'm coming in and out." But I'll go into that. But no, I know what you're saying. Like, and I when I listen to other people's experiences that are like they're carrying a deer, and I believe their story. I believe it. I believe that. I believe that they're having that experience. And so, yeah, I
Right.
mean, and so some of the Sasquatch people are able to talk to people and say things like, there's the type of us that's called the ancient ones, that were more like shorter hair, and then there's the conical head ones. Yeah. So I mean, like, I really do feel that it seems that there's definitely more than one. I don't know if you call them species or whatever, but one
Right.
type, more than, and some people think that there's like 7 different types. Yeah. So there's, yeah, I agree. I'm not here to like, oh, mine, just because I had that means that those people are like, it's just, we've all had all these different, very unique,
Right.
experiences that we
Well, that's
can
what makes
add
me
to the
wonder if
book.
it's just, maybe they're just different, possibly different creatures or different
Yeah.
subsets of species or whatever else. But we'd
Right.
have to prove all kinds of different things to figure all that out. Anything. But
Well, part of
very
it has
interesting
been
stuff.
proven already. I mean, part of it's already been proven already. Like, but it does, like, just because they found some, they did the DNA on the hair, and like, but that doesn't mean like that was just that particular hair. Like that particular hair was found to be going back 12,000 years female, and then the male is unknown species. So, but that doesn't mean they're all, like, I don't know, like, I don't have all, like, that person's got that part of the puzzle, and then the other person's got that part of the puzzle, and like,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Tricia, thank you very much for coming on with us, and again, very interesting stuff, and probably completely different than normal guests we have on. But again, I think I want to intentionally make people think about these things or whatever. And
Yeah, and I want to say,
I've always said, look. To me right now, I've seen no evidence that they're not flesh and blood. There are things that are weird, things that I can't quite figure out. But if I ever do experience something like one coming out of an orb or out of a portal, or doing some of the things that you suggest, I'll be the first one to tell somebody. You know what I'm saying? All I want is the truth. So
okay, I'm flesh and blood. And I teleported. Okay, so why can't they be both? Like, there's, like, why can't doesn't have to be one or the other? I mean, it literally happened. And I'm going to just say, like, I am kind of a goody two shoes. But I'm also like a little bit, I call myself a wholesome wild child. I don't do drugs. If I drink, it's like one drink. I've never done, I'm afraid to do like hallucinations. This is just me, being out there in the woods, like I have, I've had THC in my system at times, but it's like that, mostly the CBD product with the 0.03% of, THC, whatever. That's not going to, make me teleport. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, no, I know that there's a lot to this, but I think it's super, I could talk about it for days and days and days. It's super fascinating. I love it. Thank you so much for having me on. And I hope to come back and continue on with my experiences. Would love to continue sharing.
That sounds good. And that's we got to get a few things. I'm currently about to go through a schedule change. Richard is going through a job change, and then I'm about to have to buy 3 vehicles within the next year and a half. So I'm going to be living at work. So, but we will get it scheduled. We will get it scheduled. But we appreciate you coming on and sharing these experiences with us.
You're welcome.
Richard?
It was good meeting you, Trish. Good meeting you.
You too. Thanks. You guys too. You're nice guys. Good luck with all the work stuff and getting cars.
We try to be nice. We have that reputation. We're trying to ruin it though.
No, don't. Please don't.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have never stolen anything from anyone, and you're not the only one. Not only to get taken by Todd Standing in general, but there's just a lot of people that are involved in this topic that are doing extremely dishonest things, and theft seems to be at the top of the list, And unfortunately, it's just, I don't know what it is about this topic. It's just very easy to, I don't know, people just kind of use their knowledge or their, I don't know if you want to call it fame or whatever else, just to basically take advantage of people. And it happens all the time. I've had it happen to me. Luckily, nothing was ever taken, but I've had people just, completely lie and do all these other crazy things. So don't feel bad about that at all.
When we were talking, like leading up to me moving there, he said to me that he will do whatever it takes to get money. And it didn't register that he meant that he was sort of saying something to me without me realizing.
Right.
That he was like literally saying it to me. You know what I mean?
I'm out of me and Johnny, I'm probably the one that's the most blunt. You know what I mean? So I can just tell you that Todd Standing is a con artist, and he always has been. He's known as a hoaxer, and I would highly recommend that you go to Squatch DTV. Steve Coles did a deep dive. He knows a lot of history on Todd Standing, so you can watch that and kind of get a background on him. And another one you named Mike Patterson. You should go to Bigfoot Odyssey, and Brian King Sharp did a whole thing on Mike Patterson. So it'll at least give you an idea of a background on some of the things that people have done deep dives. They've really done their research and did some deep dives on those guys to give you a better perspective.
I've talked to Mike. He's a really good guy. Like, we had a long phone call, and I was telling him about the footsteps and the wet footsteps in the house, and like his stuff, and like, so I just,
I don't know Mike Patterson, but Brian Sharp.
That name sounds familiar, but I don't think so.
He's got his own podcast. Anyway, he found the mask. The pictures that Patterson put up, he actually found the mask in Canada from a guy that was selling it online on eBay. And these are like, the guy, I think he said his dad had two of them from like maybe the 90s or something. He had one of them. He was only asking like $5 online. And Brian ended up paying like $225 to get this guy to mail in the mask. He went through the whole process of painting the mask exactly the way it looks in the photos and doing a whole setup comparison side by side. And it is 100% a mask. And the only thing Brian says is Wayne, which is the guy whose house that all this stuff is supposedly happening at, is the only thing. There's one of two options. Either Patterson is in on it, or Wayne has completely taken him for a ride. But if nothing else, from what I've seen, and I don't get involved in debunking and all that stuff. I just don't have enough time to do that. I've got my own stuff going on in my own research. Okay, so I don't really get involved in that. I don't like the drama. I don't like argue. I don't like arguing with people because I'm good at it and I can get mean. So I avoid it at all costs, But when it comes to debunking something, I've never seen anything so conclusive in my life. That's how obvious it is that he painted these masks and that part of it's fake. All the other stuff, because I don't know. I wasn't there.
Because there's
I don't know anything about the mask.
There's certain things on it that you can't change, like the shape and the lines and the different features on the mask. They line up perfectly.
Then you can take AI can actually measure the distance from like the center of your forehead to the center of your pupil, or where the pupil would be, or the distance of the eyebrows, the distance from the mouth, the size of the teeth. Every bit of it lines up. So, he definitely hoaxed that. Everything else, I don't know. Anyway, we're right at 2 hours again. Tricia, thank you very much for coming on. Richard,
thank you.
Good luck with everything, and that'll be it for this evening. Thank you to everyone who's watching, and we'll get the second part scheduled and get into some teleportation.
Yes.
All right, guys. Y'all have a great evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
All right, guys. I'll close out the show. I'll see you guys later.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, that's tonight's show. We do have another show coming up in 2 weeks. It's Frank Middleton. Great guy. I've been talking to him for a long time, and we've had some long conversations on the phone. I've met him at the Bigfoot conference last year. And so it'll be a great interview in 2 weeks. We do have some openings coming up. So if anybody out there that has an encounter or anything like that, had a sighting and would like to talk to us about it, please go to sasquatchunredacted@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and schedule you on the show. other than that, thank you for joining us tonight. And I want to say God bless to each and every one of you, and have a great weekend. And we'll be talking to you soon. Take care.